My family made me drop out at 13 to work in the family restaurant. They took every paycheck and said education was for Americans, not immigrants. When I secretly applied to college and got in, they disowned me. Now my father's restaurant is failing, and my brother says I owe them everything. My brother Min was waiting outside my apartment building when I got home from work, leaning against his car with his arms crossed, and that expression on his face, the one that said he was about to deliver a lecture disguised as a request. I'd seen that look 1,000 times growing up, usually right before he told me I wasn't working fast enough, or cleaning thoroughly enough, or being respectful enough to our parents. He straightened when he saw me, and I noticed how much older he looked than the last time we'd spoken 3 years ago. His hair had more gray in it, his face more lines. Running Faux Saigon was aging him the way it had aged our father. Koa, he said, using my Vietnamese name, though I'd gone by Kevin professionally for years. Quote, I adjusted my grip on my briefcase, the leather worn smooth from 5 years of carrying it through the halls of the architectural firm where I worked as a senior designer. Quote, 2. Quote. The words came out flat, matter of fact, like he was telling me the weather. Quote, 4. I felt the familiar tightness in my chest, the old guilt trying to claw its way up my throat. I pushed it down. The word felt good, solid. I'd practiced saying it. What do you mean, no? Min's voice rose. I interrupted. Quote, 9. Min's face flushed red, anger and shame mixing in equal measure. You're still bitter about dropping out? That was 12 years ago. Koa. It's time to let it go. Immigrant families make sacrifices. You think you're special because you went to college? Because you have a fancy office job? You're still Vietnamese. You still owe your family respect and obligation. I owe them nothing. I moved past him toward my building entrance. Go home, Min. Tell Dad to sell the restaurant if he can't run it profitably. Tell him to retire. Tell him to figure it out without me. Min grabbed my arm. Mai is working there now. Did you know that? Your little sister, 14 years old, working 40 hours a week because we can't afford to hire enough staff. She's doing what you did, what I did, keeping the family afloat. The words hit like a punch to the stomach. My baby sister, who'd been 7 when I left, who I'd tried to shield from the worst of it. She should be in school. She is in school, Min said. She goes to classes in the morning, works the restaurant in the afternoon and evening, just like you did. But she's not as strong as you were. She's exhausted all the time. She's failing classes. Mom cries about it, but what choice do we have? The restaurant needs workers, and we can't pay outsiders when family can do the work for free. The manipulation was so obvious it made me angry. Don't do this. Don't use Mai to guilt me into helping. I'm not guilting you. I'm telling you the truth. Your sister needs you. Your family needs you. Dad is too proud to ask, but I'm not. We need money, and we need your business expertise. You understand finances, marketing, management, things Dad never learned. You could save Faux Saigon if you wanted to. You just have to stop being selfish and put family first for once. For once? The words burst out of me. I put family first for 6 years. From age 13 to 19, I gave everything to that restaurant. I worked 70-hour weeks. I cleaned grease traps at 3 in the morning. I burned my hands on fryers and cut myself with knives and breathed in steam until my lungs hurt. I gave Dad every paycheck, thousands of dollars that should have been mine. I sacrificed my education, my health, my adolescence. And when I finally chose myself by going to college, Dad disowned me. He threw me out. He said I was a disgrace to the family. So don't tell me about putting family first. Min's expression softened slightly, but his voice stayed firm. I said. Min said. The word hung in the air between us. Abused. Was it abuse when your parents made you work instead of study? When they took your money? When they isolated you from friends and activities so you'd have more time in the restaurant? When they told you that your dreams didn't matter? That only the family mattered? I'd asked myself these questions 1,000 times. Go home, Min, I said quietly. I'm not coming back to Faux Saigon. Find another way to save it. There is no other way, he said. You're the only one who escaped. You're the only one with resources and education and options. The rest of us are trapped. We've been carrying the weight you dropped when you left. Now it's your turn to carry it again. He pulled an envelope from his jacket and held it out. Here, from Dad. He wanted me to give you this. I didn't take it. Quote, 31. Quote, 32, Min insisted. Quote, 33. Against my better judgment, I took the envelope. Min nodded, satisfied, and walked back to his car. I watched him drive away before going upstairs to my apartment, a one-bedroom in a decent neighborhood, the first place I'd ever lived that was truly mine. Inside, I dropped my briefcase, poured a glass of water, and stared at the envelope. My father's handwriting on the front, Koa. Just my name, written in the careful, precise strokes he'd learned as a child in Vietnam before the war, before the immigration, before the restaurant that had consumed his life and nearly consumed mine. I opened it. The letter inside was short, written in Vietnamese. Con Tri, your brother tells me you have done well for yourself. I am glad. But success means nothing without family. You learned everything you know at Fo Saigon. Your work ethic, your discipline, your understanding of business, these came from the restaurant, from me. You owe your success to the foundation I gave you. Now I am asking you to repay that debt. Not for me, but for your mother, for your brother, for your sister, for the family that sacrificed so you could have opportunities. Come home. Help us. This is your duty as a son. Ba. I read it 3 times, feeling the familiar cocktail of emotions. Guilt, anger, obligation, resentment. He was framing my success as his creation, as if the years I'd worked for him had been a gift rather than exploitation, as if I owed him for the privilege of being worked like an adult while I was still a child. But the part about Mai got to me. My little sister, working the same exhausting hours I'd worked, sacrificing her education the same way I had. The difference was that I'd eventually escaped. What if Mai couldn't? What if she spent the next 6 years trapped at Fo Saigon, and then another 6 after that, until she was 30, and her youth was gone, and she'd never lived any life except the one our parents had chosen for her? That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Mai, about 13-year-old me, skinny and exhausted, falling asleep over homework I didn't have time to complete. About the teacher, Mrs. Kowalski. Damn, I can't use that name. Mrs. Brennan, who'd pulled me aside in 8th grade and asked why I was always tired, why my grades were dropping, why I looked like I hadn't eaten a proper meal in weeks. I'd lied to her, said everything was fine. 2 weeks later, my father pulled me out of school permanently. Quote 35, he'd said. You need to work. School is for Americans who have the luxury of wasting time. We are immigrants. We work. That's how we survive. I'd believed him then. Believed that my suffering was necessary, that it was noble, that it was what family meant. It took me years to understand that what he'd done was wrong, that child labor laws existed for a reason, that taking your child's entire paycheck was theft, that I'd been abused, even if it had been wrapped in the language of cultural tradition and family obligation. At 3 a.m, I made a decision. I'd go to Fo Saigon, not to help my father, but to see Mai, to understand what was really happening, to figure out if I could save her the way no one had saved me. The next day was Saturday. I called into work and told them I needed a personal day, then drove the 45 minutes to the old neighborhood where I'd grown up. Fo Saigon sat on a busy street corner in a heavily Vietnamese area of the city, its faded sign promising authentic Vietnamese cuisine in English and Vietnamese. The building looked shabbier than I remembered, paint peeling, windows grimy, the parking lot cracked and weedy. Inside, the lunch rush was in full swing. The restaurant was about half full, customers hunched over bowls of pho and plates of spring rolls. My mother stood at the register, just as Min had said, her hair completely white now, her face lined with exhaustion. She looked up when I entered and froze, the color draining from her face. Koa? Her voice cracked on my name. Is it really you? Hi, Ma. The Vietnamese word for mother felt strange in my mouth after years of not using it. She came around the register and grabbed my hands, tears streaming down her face. You came back. You came home. Boss said you wouldn't, but I knew you would. I knew my son would come back to help his family. The assumption that I was there to help, not just to visit, irritated me. But I pushed down the feeling and asked, Where's Mai? My mother pointed toward the kitchen. Working. She's been here since 11. She'll be happy to see you. She asks about you sometimes. We tell her you are doing well, but that you are very busy. Too busy for family. The guilt trip was immediate and obvious. I ignored it and walked toward the kitchen, pushing through the swinging doors into the chaos behind the scenes. The kitchen was exactly as I remembered. Cramped, hot, loud, dangerous. Giant pots of broth bubbled on industrial stoves. Steam filled the air, making it hard to breathe. The floors were slick with grease and water. And there, at the prep station, was Mai. She looked so small, drowning in an oversized apron, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, her hands moving quickly as she sliced vegetables. Her face was drawn, exhausted, and when she looked up and saw me, I saw something in her eyes that I remembered from my own reflection at her age. Hopelessness. Koa? She set down her knife and stared. Is it really you? I crossed to her and pulled her into a hug. She felt fragile, too thin, and when I stepped back, I saw the burns on her forearms, small, circular scars from hot oil, just like the ones I had. I heard you were working here, I said. I wanted to see you. Did you come back to help? Her voice was eager, desperate. Everyone says if you come back, you can fix everything. You can make the restaurant successful again. Then maybe I won't have to work so much. Maybe I can have time for school, for friends, for... She trailed off, as if articulating what she wanted was dangerous. I'm not here to help the restaurant, I said carefully. But I want to help you. Tell me what's going on. Tell me the truth. Mai glanced toward the door, making sure no one was listening, then said quietly, I hate it here. Koa, I hate it so much. I'm so tired all the time. My grades are terrible. I had to quit the soccer team because I don't have time for practice. My friends stopped inviting me places because I always have to work. Mom and Dad say it's temporary, that once the restaurant is profitable again, I can go back to normal life. But it's never profitable. It's always struggling. And I'm always working. How many hours a week? I don't know. Maybe 40, 50, more during busy weeks. I come here after school every day at 3 and work until closing at 10. Then weekends I work lunch and dinner. Sometimes I have to come in before school too if we're short-staffed. That's illegal, I said. Child labor laws limit how many hours 14-year-olds can work, and they require work permits and parental supervision that actually protects the child, not exploits them. I know, Mai whispered. I looked it up. But when I told Mom and Dad, they said American laws don't apply to family businesses. They said I was being selfish and disrespectful for complaining. They said you worked twice as hard at my age and never complained. I complained, I said. They just didn't listen, and I was wrong not to fight harder. At that moment, my father emerged from the back office. He was smaller than I remembered, shrunken by age and stress, but his eyes were the same, hard, judgmental, unyielding. He saw me and stopped. So, you came. His voice was flat, emotionless. Min said you came to see Mai, not to help. Is that true? That's true, I said. I came to see what's really happening here. What's really happening is we are working hard to keep a business alive like we have always done, like you should have continued doing instead of abandoning your family for selfish pursuits. The old anger flared. College wasn't selfish. It was survival. You were killing me here, Ba, slowly but surely. If I'd stayed, I'd be like Min, 35 years old with no education, no options, no life outside this restaurant. Min is a good son, my father said coldly. He understands duty and obligation. You understand only yourself. I understand that what you did to me was wrong, I said, and what you're doing to Mai is wrong. She's 14. She should be in school, playing sports, spending time with friends, not working 50 hours a week in a kitchen. She is learning valuable lessons about work and sacrifice and family loyalty. She's learning that her dreams don't matter, that her health doesn't matter, that she's a tool for the family to use, not a person with her own life to live. That's what I learned here. Is that what you want for her? My father's face flushed with anger. Quote, 73. Quote, 74. I said, my voice rising. Quote, 75. My mother appeared in the doorway, wringing her hands. Quote, 76. Quote, 77, my father said. Quote, 78. Quote, 79, I said. I turned to Mai. Quote, 80. She looked at our parents, then at me, fear and hope warring in her expression. Finally, quietly, she said, quote, 81, quote, 82. My mother gasped. Quote 83, quote 84. She looked at me. Quote 85, quote 86. I said firmly. Quote 87. My father stepped closer, his voice low and threatening. I kept my voice calm. The kitchen went silent. Even the sounds from the dining room seemed to fade. My father stared at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Part shock, part rage, part fear. You would destroy your own family's livelihood, he said. You would put your parents on the street. You would ruin us. I would protect my sister, I said. The same way someone should have protected me. If you won't let Mai go back to school and have a normal life, then yes, I'll report you. I'll make sure the state investigates every aspect of how you run this restaurant, including the years you employed me illegally as a minor, taking my entire paycheck without proper documentation or taxes. I kept records, Ba. I have proof of everything. This was a bluff. I had some records, old pay stubs I'd kept, a diary I'd written documenting my hours and the treatment I'd received. But I wasn't sure it was enough to build a legal case. Still, my father didn't know that. He took a step back, his face pale. I said. My mother was crying now, soft, broken sobs. Quote 98. Quote 99, I said. Quote $100. Min appeared in the doorway, breathing hard like he'd been running. What's going on? The servers said there was shouting. Your brother is threatening to destroy us, my father said. He's threatening to report us to the state, to use his precious education to ruin his own family. Min looked at me, betrayal and anger in his eyes. Is that true? You'd actually do that? Only if Ba keeps exploiting Mai the way he exploited me. If he lets her go back to school full-time, if he hires proper staff to replace her, if he stops treating his children like unpaid employees, then no, I won't report him. But if he continues, if he keeps using her, then yes, I'll do whatever I have to do to protect her. Min shook his head slowly. You really have become American, haven't you? All about individual rights and personal freedom, no sense of family loyalty or cultural obligation. You make me sick. You want to know what makes me sick? I turned on him. You. Standing there acting like Dad's behavior is normal, like it's acceptable, like it's something to defend. You know what he did to us was wrong. You lived it too. You worked just as many hours, sacrificed just as much. But instead of acknowledging it was abuse, you've convinced yourself it was character building. That's pathetic, Min. You had a chance to break the cycle when you took over the restaurant. Instead, you're perpetuating it. Min lunged at me. I barely had time to raise my arms before he grabbed my shirt, shoving me against the prep table. Mai screamed. My mother rushed forward, trying to separate us. Boys, stop it! Stop fighting! My father's voice cut through the chaos. Quote 110. Min's face was inches from mine, twisted with rage. You think you're so much better than us. You think your degree makes you special, but you're nothing. You hear me? Nothing. Everything you have, you built on the foundation we gave you. You owe us everything, and you're too arrogant to see it. I don't owe you anything, I said through gritted teeth. I earned everything I have despite you, not because of you. Now get your hands off me before I press assault charges. He shoved me harder, then let go. I stumbled, but caught myself. Min turned away, breathing hard, his hands shaking. Get out. Get out and never come back. You're dead to this family. Fine by me, I said. I looked at Mai, still standing at her prep station, tears streaming down her face. Mai, you have my phone number. If you need help, if things get worse, call me. I'll come get you. I'll figure something out. You don't have to stay here. She's staying, my father said. She's our daughter, and she'll honor her family obligations. You have no say in this. Actually, I might, I said. If Mai's working conditions violate child labor laws, the state could remove her from this environment. They could investigate whether she's being properly cared for or being exploited. You want to risk that? My father's expression darkened. Quote 121. Quote 100. I moved toward the door, then paused. Quote 123. I walked out through the dining room, past the customers who'd clearly heard raised voices, past my mother crying at the register, past the faded photos on the wall showing my father as a young man, newly arrived in America, dreaming of success. Outside, I sat in my car for 10 minutes, shaking with adrenaline and leftover anger. I'd just threatened my own father. I'd drawn a line in the sand. There was no going back from this. My phone buzzed. A text from Mai. "Thank you for standing up for me. I'm scared, but I'm also relieved. Someone finally said it was wrong. I thought I was crazy for feeling trapped." I texted back, "You're not crazy. What they're doing is wrong. Stay strong. I'll check in soon. If anything gets worse, call me immediately. I mean it. Anytime, day or night." Another text came in, this one from Min. "You just destroyed this family. I hope you're proud of yourself." I didn't respond. Instead, I drove home, poured myself a drink, and called the one person who'd understand. My old high school counselor, Mrs. Brennan. She'd been the one who'd first questioned what was happening to me, who'd provided information about college applications and scholarships when I'd finally, secretly, decided to change my future. She answered on the third ring. "Kevin? Is that you? It's been years." "Hi, Mrs. Brennan. I need advice. It's about my family." I explained the situation, Mai's working conditions, my father's refusal to change, my threat to report them. Mrs. Brennan listened without interrupting, then said, "The first thing you need to know is that you're right. What they're doing to Mai violates multiple child labor laws. 14-year-olds can only work limited hours on school days, and there are strict restrictions on the type of work they can do. Working in a commercial kitchen, handling sharp objects and hot equipment for 50-plus hours a week, that's absolutely illegal." "I thought so," I said, "but I wasn't sure if family businesses had exemptions." "Some exemptions exist, but they're limited and they still require adherence to safety standards and hour restrictions. What you've described crosses every line. If you report this, the Department of Labor will investigate. Your father could face significant fines. The restaurant could be shut down temporarily or permanently. Your sister could be removed from the home if they determine it's an unsafe environment." "Would reporting them be the right thing to do?" I asked. "Or would I just be destroying my family out of spite?" Mrs. Brennan was quiet for a moment. "Kevin, I remember when you were my student. I remember how exhausted you looked, how your grades dropped, how you withdrew from everything. I suspected something was wrong, but I couldn't prove it, and you wouldn't tell me. When you disappeared from school, I called your home and your father told me you'd decided education wasn't for you. I knew that was a lie. You were one of the brightest kids I'd ever taught. But there was nothing I could do." Her voice grew firmer. "Now, you have a chance to save your sister from the same fate. Yes, reporting your parents will have consequences for them, but not reporting them will have consequences for Mai. Which consequences can you live with?" The question haunted me. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept imagining Mai 10 years from now, still trapped at Faux Saigon, her youth gone, her dreams abandoned. I imagined her bitter and resentful like Min, or broken and resigned like my mother. I couldn't let that happen. But I also imagined my parents losing everything, being fined, possibly even facing criminal charges. They were old now, in their 70s. Could they survive that kind of devastation? Did they deserve it? By Monday morning, I'd made a decision. I'd give my father the full 7 days to make changes. But I'd also start documenting everything, gathering evidence in case I needed it. If he refused to protect Mai, I'd protect her myself, whatever the cost. At work, I was distracted. My boss, Angela, noticed during our team meeting. "Kevin, you okay? You seem off." "Family issues," I said. "It'll pass." After the meeting, she pulled me aside. "If you need time off, take it. Family comes first." The irony of that statement, family comes first, hit me hard. Family first had been the excuse for everything bad that had happened in my childhood. Family first meant working instead of studying. Family first meant giving up my paycheck. Family first meant sacrificing my dreams. But for Angela, family comes first meant taking care of yourself and your loved ones. It meant setting boundaries and protecting your well-being. Same words, completely different meaning. "Thanks," I said. "I might need a few days this week." On Wednesday, I drove back to Faux Saigon, unannounced. I wanted to see if anything had changed. The restaurant was quieter this time, just a few customers scattered at tables. My mother saw me enter and her face tightened with anxiety. "Koa, why are you here?" "I want to see Mai. Is she working today?" My mother hesitated, then nodded toward the kitchen. I pushed through the doors and found Mai at the same prep station, wearing the same exhausted expression. When she saw me, relief flooded her face. "You came back." I said I would. "How are things? Did Ba reduce your hours?" She shook her head. "He's angry, really angry. He yells at me more now, says I'm ungrateful like you. But he hasn't changed anything. I'm still working the same schedule." Rage bloomed in my chest, hot and sharp. "Where is he?" "In the office." I walked to the small office at the back of the kitchen and pushed open the door without knocking. My father sat at a battered desk, going through receipts and bills, his face drawn with stress. He looked up and his expression hardened. I told you to stay away. You had 7 days to change Mai's working conditions. It's been 3 and nothing's different. She's still working 50-hour weeks. So I'm giving you a final chance. Reduce her hours to legal limits. No more than 18 hours per week during the school year, with restrictions on school nights. Hire additional staff to replace her. Let her be a teenager, or I file my report. My father stood, his hands gripping the edge of the desk. "You want me to hire staff? With what money? I can barely pay the suppliers I owe. I can't afford to hire anyone. That's why I need Mai. That's why I needed you. Family works for free because we are all in this together. If I pay wages to strangers, there's no profit. The restaurant fails. We lose everything. Is that what you want?" "What I want is for you to run a sustainable business that doesn't exploit children," I said. "If you can't afford to pay employees, then you can't afford to run a restaurant. It's that simple. Your financial problems don't give you the right to use your daughter as free labor." "She's not free labor. She's family contributing to the family business. This is how it works in our culture. You've become so American, you've forgotten where you came from." "I haven't forgotten anything," I said. "I remember every exhausting day, every burn, every cut, every night I fell asleep over homework I was too tired to complete. I remember you taking my paychecks and telling me it was for the family's good. I remember asking if I could go to the science fair and you said no, the restaurant needed me. I remember wanting to join the soccer team and you said it was a waste of time. I remember all of it, Ba. And I remember promising myself that if I ever got out, I'd never let anyone else go through what I went through." My father's face contorted with anger and something else. Guilt, maybe, or shame. Quote, 159. Quote, 160, I said. Quote, 161. Quote, 162, he said flatly. Quote, 163. Quote, 164, I said. The words felt brutal but necessary. Quote, 165. Quote, 166. My father said, his voice breaking. Quote, 167. For the first time, I saw him not as the tyrant of my childhood, but as a frightened old man watching his life's work crumble. It didn't excuse what he'd done, but it contextualized it. His identity was wrapped up in this restaurant. Losing it meant admitting failure. It was for raising 3 children who survived and made lives for themselves, I said more gently. Min is managing the restaurant. I'm a successful architect. Mai is smart and capable with her whole future ahead of her. That's what it was all for, Ba. Not the building or the business, but us, your children. And we turned out okay despite everything, not because of the restaurant, but in spite of it. He sat down heavily, suddenly looking every one of his 73 years. You really think I abused you? You think I was cruel? Yes, I said honestly. I think you took someone else's template for success. Work hard, sacrifice, put family first, and applied it so rigidly that you couldn't see you were hurting your children. I think you conflated suffering with virtue. I think you believed that because you'd suffered to build this restaurant, we had to suffer too. But suffering isn't noble, it's just suffering. And forcing it on your children doesn't make them stronger. It just makes them damaged. He put his face in his hands. For a long moment, he was silent. Then, I don't know how to fix this. I don't know how to save the restaurant without Mai. I don't know how to survive without Fo Saigon. You'll figure it out, I said. The way people always do. You'll adapt, you'll change, you'll find a new path. But you can't do it by sacrificing Mai. She deserves better. We all deserved better. I turned to leave, then paused. I mean what I said. If Mai's still working full-time when I come back in 4 days, I'm filing the report. This is your last chance. Over the next 4 days, I barely functioned. I kept checking my phone, expecting angry calls from Min or my mother. Instead, silence. On day 6, I received a text from Mai. Something's happening. They've been arguing about money and the restaurant all week. I think they're making changes, but I don't know what. Day 7 was a Sunday. I drove to Faux Saigon at noon, my stomach tight with anxiety. What I found surprised me, a help wanted sign in the window. My mother was at the register as usual, but she looked different, less burdened somehow. Mai was nowhere in sight. I approached my mother cautiously. "Where's Mai?" She looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. She trailed off, wiping her eyes. Quote 181. I finished. She nodded. Quote 182. I found my father in the office looking exhausted. He gestured to the chair across from him. Quote 183. I sat. He pulled out a ledger and showed me columns of numbers. Quote 184. The numbers didn't lie. Even with a full dining room, the restaurant barely broke even. With slow weeks factored in, it was bleeding money. "We're going to lose the building," he said flatly. "Maybe within 6 months, maybe sooner. We can't afford the rent and the supplies and the staff and the loan payments. It's mathematically impossible." "Then close it," I said. "There's no shame in that. You ran a restaurant for 35 years. That's an accomplishment. Most restaurants don't last 5. "It's not an accomplishment if it ends in failure," he said bitterly. "If we lose everything, what was the point? Why did we work so hard? Why did we sacrifice so much?" "You're asking the wrong questions," I said. "The point wasn't the building or the business. The point was surviving, providing for your family, building a life in a new country. You did that, you won, but now it's time to let go." He was quiet for a long time. Finally, "I want to understand something. When you left, when you went to college, I thought you were destroying your future. I thought you'd fail without the restaurant, without family support. But you didn't fail. You succeeded. How?" The question felt like the first genuine thing he'd asked me in years, I said. He admitted. Quote 197. The confession hung between us, raw and painful. Quote 198. I said gently. Quote 199. He nodded slowly, tears streaming down his weathered face. Quote 200. It wasn't a full apology. It wasn't everything I needed. But it was something. It was a start. Over the next 3 months, I watched from a distance as Faux Saigon's situation deteriorated. The new staff helped, but the finances were unsustainable. My father tried various desperate measures, a new menu, marketing campaigns, longer hours. Nothing worked. The restaurant was dying. Min called me one evening, his voice defeated. "We're closing. The bank is foreclosing at the end of the month. Dad is devastated. Mom won't stop crying. I don't know what we're going to do." "What do you want to do?" I asked. "Honestly, I'm relieved," he said. "I've spent 15 years running this place, and I hate it. I never wanted to take it over. I just felt obligated. But now that it's being taken away, I feel like I can finally breathe. Does that make me a terrible son?" "No," I said. "It makes you human. What will you do next?" "I don't know. I have no education, no real work experience outside the restaurant. I'm 35 with the resume of a teenager. Who's going to hire me?" "I might," I said. The word surprised both of us. "What?" "My firm is expanding. We need someone to manage our procurement and logistics. It's not glamorous, but it pays well and there's room for growth. You've managed suppliers, inventory, scheduling for years. Those skills transfer. If you want the job, I can recommend you." Min was silent for a long moment, then quietly, "Why would you help me? After everything?" "Because you're my brother," I said. "And because I understand what Faux Saigon did to you. You were trapped just like I was. The difference is you never tried to escape. Maybe it's time. I don't deserve your help." "Probably not," I agreed. "But I'm offering anyway. Take it or leave it." He took it. A month later, with Faux Saigon closed and the equipment sold to cover debts, Min started working at my firm. He was awkward at first, uncomfortable with the corporate environment, but he learned quickly. Turned out he was good at logistics, at managing complex systems, at keeping everything organized. He was reliable and hardworking, and gradually my colleagues stopped seeing him as Kevin's brother who needed a favor, and started seeing him as a valuable team member. My parents moved into a small apartment, their nest egg gone, living on Social Security and the little bit they'd salvaged from selling the restaurant equipment. I helped them financially, not out of obligation, but out of choice. I set up a monthly transfer that covered their rent and basic expenses. My mother cried and thanked me. My father didn't say much, but he nodded, acknowledging the gesture. Mai thrived. Without the restaurant consuming her life, she rejoined the soccer team, brought her grades up, made friends. She started talking about college, about becoming a doctor. She had dreams again, and the space to pursue them. One Sunday, 6 months after Fo Saigon closed, my family gathered at my apartment for dinner. It was awkward at first. We'd spent so many years in conflict that peace felt foreign. But gradually, conversation began to flow. Min talked about a big project at work. Mai talked about her soccer team making the playoffs. My mother talked about the community center where she'd started volunteering. My father was quiet, but his face had lost some of its hardness. At one point, he looked at me and said, "You have a nice home. I am proud of what you've built." The words were simple, but they hit hard. It was the first time he'd ever said he was proud of me. I managed. After dinner, as everyone was leaving, my father pulled me aside. Quote, 2 to 20, he said. Quote, 21, quote, 2 to, I asked. He nodded. Quote, 2 to 23. It wasn't eloquent. It wasn't dramatic, but it was real, I said. He nodded again, slower this time, processing. I said. Quote, 228. We stood in awkward silence for a moment, then he patted my shoulder, a rare gesture of physical affection, and left. After everyone was gone, I cleaned up the dishes and thought about how far we'd come. The restaurant was gone. The family I'd grown up with had been dismantled and rebuilt into something different. Relationships that had been defined by exploitation and resentment were slowly, tentatively transforming into something healthier. A year later, I received a call from Mrs. Brennan. I said yes. The student's name was Duke. When I met him at a coffee shop near his school, I saw myself at 16, exhausted, desperate, trapped between family loyalty and personal survival. I told him my story. All of it. The years working at Fo Saigon, the stolen paychecks, the dropped-out education, the secret college applications, the disownment, the years of estrangement. And finally, the reconciliation, the boundaries set, the family rebuilt on healthier terms. The most important thing I learned, I told him, is that your family can be wrong. They can love you and still hurt you. They can have good intentions and still cause damage. And you're allowed to say no. You're allowed to choose yourself. That's not selfishness. That's survival. Duke listened intently, asking questions, taking notes. At the end, he said, "My parents say I owe them everything, that they sacrificed to bring me to America and now I have to sacrifice for the family. How do I argue against that?" "You don't argue," I said. "Because they're not trying to have a logical discussion. They're trying to manipulate you with guilt. Instead, you make a plan. You document everything. Hours worked, money earned, any abuse or exploitation. You find trusted adults who can help, teachers, counselors, social workers. You research your options for college, for scholarships, for financial aid. And when you're ready, you make your choice and you accept the consequences." "What were your consequences?" he asked. "My family disowned me. I was alone for 8 years. I struggled financially, emotionally, psychologically. But I also became myself. I built a life I was proud of. I learned I could survive without them. And eventually, when I had the strength, I built a bridge back to them on my terms. Not their terms. Mine." Duck nodded slowly. "I'm scared." "That's normal," I said. I was terrified. But fear doesn't mean you're making the wrong choice. Sometimes fear means you're making a brave choice. Over the next 2 years, I mentored Duke and 3 other students in similar situations. I helped them navigate college applications, connected them with scholarship resources, advised them on dealing with family pressure. One by one, they escaped. One by one, they chose education over exploitation. Mrs. Brennan called it my second career. I called it repaying a debt, not to my family, but to my younger self. To the 13-year-old who'd worked until his hands bled, who'd believed his dreams didn't matter, who'd thought suffering was the only path to survival. I couldn't go back and save him, but I could save others like him, And I could teach them something I'd learned the hard way, that family is important, but it's not everything. That obligation has limits, that you're allowed to choose yourself, to set boundaries, to say no. That sacrifice is only noble if it's voluntary. That love shouldn't come with a price tag. 3 years after Faux Saigon closed, Mai graduated high school with honors and a full scholarship to university. At her graduation party, my father gave a speech. "My daughter is going to college," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "She is going to be a doctor. This is because she worked hard, yes, but also because her brother taught me that education is not just for Americans. It is for anyone who wants it. It is for immigrants too, for our children, for the next generation. I learned this lesson too late to help my sons, but I learned it in time to help my daughter. That is something." The speech was imperfect, still tinged with the old beliefs, but it represented change, real change. After the party, Mai pulled me aside. "Thank you," she said, "for fighting for me when I couldn't fight for myself, for showing me there was another way, for proving that choosing yourself doesn't make you a bad person." "You would have figured it out eventually," I said. "No," she said firmly. "I wouldn't have. I would have ended up like Min, spending my life at a restaurant I hated, telling myself it was duty and honor when really it was just fear. You broke the pattern. You showed me I could break it too." 5 years after Faux Saigon closed, Min was promoted to senior logistics manager at my firm. He'd gone back to school part-time, earning a business degree in his late 30s. He'd started dating someone, a woman who worked in accounting, who treated him with respect and kindness. He'd built a life outside the restaurant, and it suited him. One day over lunch, he said, I looked up from my food. I said, quote, 251. He smiled, something I didn't see often. Yeah, I guess I did. Better late than never, right? Right, I agreed. 10 years after I'd threatened to report my father, after I'd drawn that line in the sand and refused to enable exploitation masquerading as family duty, I stood in my office looking at a photo on my desk. It showed my whole family, my parents, elderly but healthy, Min and his girlfriend, Mai in her medical school coat, and me. We were smiling, not the forced smiles of obligation, but genuine expressions of connection. We weren't a perfect family. We still had disagreements, still struggled with communication, still carried scars from the past. But we'd built something new from the ruins of what we'd been. Something based on choice rather than obligation, on mutual respect rather than exploitation, on love that didn't demand suffering as proof of loyalty. My parents never fully understood why I'd fought them so hard. They still occasionally made comments about how, quote, too fit for I'd become, how I'd lost touch with traditional values. But they'd stopped trying to guilt me into compliance. They'd accepted that I had boundaries, that I made my own choices, that my life was mine to live. And slowly, painfully, they'd learned to respect that. That respect, hard-won, carefully maintained, was worth more than all the years I'd spent being the perfect, obedient son, because it was real, it was honest, it was built on a foundation of mutual dignity rather than one-sided sacrifice. That was the real victory, not the college degree or the successful career or the financial stability. The victory was this. I'd broken the cycle. I'd chosen myself when it mattered most. I'd protected my sister. I'd set an example for others trapped in similar situations. I'd transformed suffering into purpose and pain into growth. And I'd taught my family, slowly, imperfectly, but undeniably, what love without exploitation looked like. That was justice. That was freedom. That was enough. Thanks for watching till the end. Make sure to subscribe and like to not miss the next story.